"You're nothing but a disgrace to this bloodline," my uncle sneered as he tore up my scholarship letter in front of the family. My father just sipped his whiskey and said, "It's better this way. I vanished for 11 years. Yesterday, I bought the house my parents live in, then sent one cryptic message that turned our family group chat into chaos. I still have that torn scholarship letter, 11 years later, and I've kept every jagged piece taped back together in a fireproof safe, not as a reminder of what could have been, but as fuel for what I became. Growing up in a 3-bedroom ranch house with cracked vinyl siding wasn't exactly the American dream, the kind of place where the kitchen linoleum curled at the edges and the bathroom fan made this death rattle sound that became the soundtrack to my childhood. Dad Diego worked at the local factory, coming home smelling like metal shavings and cheap whiskey. Mom Patricia cleaned houses for the families across town who lived in homes with actual foundations that didn't shift during winter. I was always the weird one in my family. While my cousin Raul was out getting wasted behind the 7-Eleven, I was the kid with my nose in physics textbooks. Not because I was some kind of genius, but because I saw it as my only ticket out. Every hour studying was another brick in the wall I was building between myself and this town. My senior year, I applied for 17 scholarships. 17. I'd stay up until 3 a.m. writing essays after finishing my shifts at the gas station. My guidance counselor, Miss Winters, kept saying I had potential. That word adults use when they mean you don't belong where you are, but they're not sure you'll make it out either. When the letter from State University arrived, I literally sat on the porch steps for 20 minutes just holding the envelope. It felt heavy, which everyone knows means acceptance. But I didn't know how heavy until I opened it. Full ride. Engineering program. The golden ticket. The smart thing would have been to tell no one. Pack my bags and ghost this town like it was a bad Tinder date. But I made the mistake of thinking blood meant something. My grandmother Sylvia's birthday was that weekend. The whole family crammed into Uncle Emilio's house. The nice split level with the finished basement he never let anyone forget he built himself. Uncle Emilio was what people around here called successful. Owned a small construction business, drove a new F-150, and reminded everyone at every chance that he never needed college to make something of himself. I still remember the smell of my grandmother's pozole simmering on the stove when I walked in. Everyone was already there, Dad nursing his first or third whiskey. In the corner, Mom arranging napkins, like they would somehow make up for our family's general lack of class. Raul playing some shooter game on his phone. My cousin Zariah texting someone she actually wanted to talk to. The scholarship letter was burning a hole in my pocket all through dinner. I kept waiting for the right moment, like there's ever a right moment to tell your family you're planning to leave them behind. After the cake, when everyone was in that food coma state, I figured it was now or never. I cleared my throat and just said it. I got into state with a full scholarship. I'd be studying engineering in the fall. The silence that followed felt like someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Dad stared into his whiskey, like it might tell him what to say. Mom's smile looked like it had been hastily stapled to her face. Then Uncle Emilio laughed. Not the good kind. He started going on about how people, like us, don't belong in fancy universities. How I'd wash out in a semester and come crawling back. How I'd always been putting on airs, thinking I was better than everyone. The whole time he was getting louder, his face getting redder. I remember looking at my dad, waiting for him to say something, anything. The foundation of my world was cracking beneath my feet, and I needed him to throw me a line. Instead, he just sipped his whiskey and muttered that maybe Emilio had a point, that these college types would eat me alive, that it was better this way. Uncle Emilio asked to see the letter. Like a fucking idiot, I handed it over. I still remember his eyes scanning it, his lips curling into this sneer that I see every time I close my eyes, even now. That's when he said it. "You're nothing but a disgrace to this bloodline ... Like we were some kind of royalty instead of trailer park adjacent. Like our bloodline had produced anything more impressive than alcoholics and factory workers. Then he tore it, slowly, deliberately, right down the middle, then quarters, then eighths. The sound of the paper ripping might as well have been my future tearing apart. The confetti of my dreams drifted down onto Grandma Sylvia's pozole-stained tablecloth. Dad just took another sip and said, "It's better this way, asterisk asterisk." Not angry, calm, like he was commenting on the weather. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there while something inside me calcified. Every tear I didn't shed turned into concrete, building a foundation for something new, something harder. Grandma Sylvia found me later, sitting on the back porch steps. She didn't offer empty platitudes or tell me everything happens for a reason. She just pressed $500 bills into my palm and told me her father had tried to stop her from marrying Grandpa, too. Said, sometimes family is just the starting point, not the finish line. That night, I lay in my bedroom staring at the water stain on the ceiling that had always looked like Australia. I could hear Dad and Mom arguing in hushed tones downstairs. Mom saying I deserved a chance. Dad saying I needed to learn my place. The same argument they'd been having my entire life. With the same outcome, Dad wins because Mom can't afford to leave. I decided I wouldn't make the same mistake. I waited until 3 a.m., packed one duffel bag with essentials, took the torn pieces of my scholarship letter and the money from Grandma, left my phone on the bed. I didn't want to be tracked or guilted into coming back. The only person I texted was Miss Winters, from a burner phone I bought at Walmart on my way out of town, asking if she could help me sort things out with the university. The Greyhound station at 4 a.m. is where dreams go to die, but mine was just beginning. As the bus pulled away, I didn't look back at the town. I was cataloging names in my head, mental blueprints of every slight, every dismissal, every moment Uncle Emilio had made me feel small, and Dad had let him. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I'd be back. And when I returned, I wouldn't be asking for a seat at their table. I'd own the fucking house. That first year was brutal, sleeping on couches, working construction during the day, and attending community college classes at night. My hands bled, my back ached, but every blister was just another brick in the foundation of my revenge. I'd look at those calloused palms in the shower and think of Uncle Emilio's sneer. The scholarship was gone. You can't exactly enroll in a university when you've fled town with no documents, no support system, and only a few $100s to your name. But I found other ways. Smaller scholarships, work-study programs, loans I'm still paying off. I scraped and clawed my way through an associate's degree, then transferred to finish my bachelor. All the while, I kept tabs on them through distant connections. Cousin Zariah would occasionally post family updates on Instagram that I'd view through a fake account. Dad's drinking got worse. Mom's health declined. Uncle Emilio's business expanded, then contracted with the housing market. I never responded to the texts Mom would send to my email, the only contact info I left behind. Every birthday, every Christmas, "We miss you. Please come home." Your father didn't mean it, but he did mean it, and so did I. Over the years, I moved from grunt work to project management, from renting rooms to buying a small condo, from community college to my engineering degree. Each step calculated, each move bringing me closer to the moment I dreamed about on that Greyhound bus. When I learned through Zariah's posts that Uncle Emilio had leveraged himself too far, that the family home had been remortgaged to keep his business afloat, I knew my time was coming. When the housing market crashed again last year, I was ready. The property records are public, after all. Finding out the house my parents rented from my uncle was going into foreclosure was just a matter of checking the right databases. Buying it through a shell company took more work, but 11 years of focused rage provides plenty of motivation to learn about real estate law. Yesterday, I signed the final papers. The house where my parents still live now belongs to me. The land beneath Uncle Emilio's precious split level is mine too. The commercial property where his failing business operates, I own that now as well. They don't know yet. They have no idea that the anonymous LLC that purchased their debts is owned by the Disgrace who left town on a Greyhound at 4 a.m. 11 years ago. Last night, I sent one message to the family group chat Zariah had inadvertently revealed existed in the background of one of her selfies. I'd worked out everyone's contact info over years of careful research. One message after 11 years of silence. Asterisk, asterisk. The house remembers what was torn. So do I. Expect changes to your living arrangements shortly. S asterisk, asterisk. My phone has been blowing up since. Confusion, anger, fear, theories about who I might be. The chaos is just beginning, and for the first time in 11 years, I'm smiling as I scroll through my messages. The foundation is poured. Now it's time to build. Update. The first 6 months after leaving were a blur of budget motels and instant ramen. Nights spent staring at water-stained ceilings, calculating exactly how many days my meager savings would last. $312 doesn't stretch far when you're 18 and homeless, even with Grandma Sylvia's emergency cash. But rage is a powerful fuel source when you know how to harness. My first apartment was a basement studio, with a shower that routinely flooded the bathroom floor and a neighbor who blasted EDM until 3 a.m., but it had Wi-Fi and a lock on the door. Two things I needed to start building. Not building a life, building a weapon. I found work at a construction site through a guy at the bus stop. Kennedy was 50-something, weathered like old timber, with hands so calloused they felt like leather gloves. He sized me up that first day with the kind of look that strips away bullshit. Asked if I was running from something or towards something. I told him both. He nodded like that made perfect sense. Kennedy taught me more than how to frame a wall or run electrical. He taught me how the real world operates, how deals get made, how men like my uncle maintain their small-town empires, and most importantly, how those empires can be dismantled. During lunch breaks, while other guys scrolled through TikTok, I'd be researching local real estate markets on my cracked phone screen, learning the language, cap rates, equity multiple, leveraged position. Every term was another tool in my toolbox. 3 years into my exile, I got an anonymous email to the account I'd set up just to monitor my family from a distance. It was from Zariah. She'd figured out I was still alive from some mutual friend's Snapchat story, where I'd accidentally appeared in the background. Classic OPSEC failure on my part. I almost didn't respond, but Zariah had always been different from the rest of them. She sent me updates. Uncle Emilio had expanded his business during the housing boom. Dad was drinking more. Mom had developed arthritis from years of cleaning houses, and Grandma Sylvia had pancreatic cancer. That last bit hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. The only person who'd helped me, and I couldn't even say goodbye. Zariah asked if I wanted to come to the funeral. I didn't reply for 3 days. By then, Grandma was already in the ground. I sent Zariah $50 for flowers and told her to sign the card from S. That night, I got blackout drunk for the first and last time in my life. Woke up with my face pressed against the bathroom floor and a newfound clarity. Emotional outbursts weren't going to bring down Uncle Emilio. Cold, calculated strategy would. By year 5, I'd moved up from grunt work to running crews. Kennedy had taken a liking to me, said I had the mind of an engineer, but the hands of a builder. A rare combination in his experience. He started bringing me along to meetings with clients, with suppliers, with his financial advisor. I absorbed everything like a sponge. I lived like a monk during those years. No relationships that lasted more than a few weeks. No vacations, no expensive hobbies. Every dollar that didn't go to rent or food went into my investment accounts. I was building capital for a war only I knew was coming. In year 7, Kennedy offered me a 10% stake in his business, said he'd never met anyone who could stretch a dollar further or squeeze more profit from a project. I accepted on one condition, that I could start a side operation focused on distressed properties. He thought I was just being ambitious. He had no idea I was building an arsenal. I kept tabs on my hometown through Zariah's occasional messages and public records. Property taxes, business filings, liens, and foreclosures. It's amazing what you can learn when you know where to look. Uncle Emilio had overextended during the boom times, leveraging his primary residence to finance a commercial property expansion. Classic mistake. He was building on sand, not bedrock. By year 9, I had enough capital to make my first significant move. I formed an LLC with an anonymous registration in Delaware, standard practice for privacy, but in my case, it was camouflage for something more targeted. Through this entity, I began purchasing small commercial properties in my hometown. Nothing that would raise eyebrows. A vacant lot here, a small retail space there. I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into Uncle Emilio's business affairs. Not illegal, just thorough. Turned out his major client, the one keeping his operation afloat, was looking to expand their contract. This client accounted for 60% of Emilio's annual revenue, a single point of failure in his business model. It took 3 months of careful maneuvering, but I secured a meeting with this client through an industry connection Kennedy had introduced me to years earlier. I didn't undercut Emilio's bid. I destroyed it, offered services at a 20% discount, with guaranteed timelines and quality metrics his outdated operation couldn't match. I operated at a loss on that contract, but it wasn't about profit. It was about removing a load-bearing wall from Emilio's financial house. Within 2 months, Uncle Emilio was in trouble. Without his major client, cash flow became an issue. He started laying off workers, including people who'd been with him for decades. I watched from a distance as he took out a second mortgage on his home, that split level he was so proud of, to keep things afloat. Year 10 was when I learned my parents' situation had changed. Dad's liver was failing from years of whiskey breakfasts. Mom couldn't keep up with her cleaning jobs due to her arthritis. They'd moved into the rental property Emilio owned, the house I grew up in, with Emilio charging them reduced rent in exchange for Dad helping with his increasingly desperate business. That's when the final piece clicked into place. Emilio had leveraged that property too. It was part of a package of assets, securing a business loan that was now in danger of default. The house where my scholarship dreams had been torn apart was vulnerable. Through my Delaware LLC, I approached the bank holding Emilio's loans, expressed interest in acquiring the debt at a discount, given the increased risk of default. Banks hate carrying non-performing loans on their books. They'll often sell them at 60 or 70 cents on the dollar just to clean up their balance sheets. I paid 85 cents, a premium, but worth every penny. Now I controlled Emilio's debt. I could call it due any time, force liquidation of his assets, take everything, but that would be too quick, too merciful. Instead, I waited, watched as he scrambled to find new clients, watched as he laid off more workers, watched as his once proud business became a shell of itself. I could see it all through quarterly financial reports he was required to submit to my LLC as his creditor. In year 11, last month, I finally pulled the trigger, called the loan due when I knew he couldn't pay, forced the foreclosure process on both commercial and residential property, then showed up at the auction, bidding through yet another shell company. No one else bid on the residential property. The market was still recovering, and the house needed work. I got it for 30% below market value. The commercial property went for slightly more, but still a bargain. By last week, I owned the house my parents lived in, the commercial building where Emilio's failing business operated, and through careful acquisitions over the years, most of the properties surrounding both. I raised the commercial property rent by 300%, effective immediately. For the house, I did something more subtle. I kept the rent the same, but changed where the payments went. A new online portal, a new account number, no indication that ownership had changed hands. Then I waited for someone to notice. It took 6 days. Mom called the number on the new payment portal to ask about the change. The property management company I'd hired gave the standard response. The property had been acquired by a new owner who wished to remain anonymous. That's when I sent the message to the family group chat. Asterisk, asterisk. The house remembers what was torn. So do I. Expect changes to your living arrangements shortly. S asterisk, asterisk. Within minutes, my phone blew up. Zariah was the first to make the connection. Then Raul. Then Mom. A flurry of OMGs and WTFs filled my screen. Dad remained silent. Uncle Emilio demanded to know who was behind this, threatening legal action. With what money I won. I let them stew for 24 hours before sending a follow-up. Asterisk, asterisk, family meeting. The house, Saturday at noon. All must attend or eviction proceedings begin Monday. This is non-negotiable. Sarka S asterisk asterisk. More chaos, more threats, more confusion. But beneath it all, fear. The kind that keeps you up at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how your world got turned upside down. I know that feeling well. I lived with it for 11 years. Today is Friday. Tomorrow, I return to the house where my future was torn to pieces. I've had the living room set up exactly as it was that day. Same furniture arrangement, same tablecloth, same family photos on the wall. The scholarship letter, carefully restored, sits in a frame on the coffee table. I've packed light for the trip. One suitcase, one laptop containing all the documents showing my ownership of their lives, and one small voice recorder, because I want to capture the exact moment Uncle Emilio realizes that the disgrace to his bloodline now holds his entire existence in the palm of his hand. 11 years of silence ends tomorrow, and the noise I'm about to make will echo through what's left of their lives forever. Some people think revenge is a dish best served cold. I prefer to think of it as a foundation that needs time to properly set before you build upon it. And tomorrow, I break ground on the final phase. Update 2. I drove into town at exactly 10:37 a.m., 2 hours and 23 minutes before the scheduled meeting, early enough to prepare the battlefield, late enough to avoid chance encounters at the local coffee shop. I wanted the element of surprise preserved until the moment of maximum impact. The town hadn't changed much. Same cracked sidewalks, same faded storefronts with "going out of business" signs that had been there since I was a kid. The gas station where I used to work now had self-checkout kiosks. Progress, I guess. I parked my car 2 blocks from the house and walked the rest. Not a fancy car. A 5-year-old sedan with good gas mileage. Flashy displays of wealth are for people who need external validation. I just needed control. The property management company had followed my instructions perfectly. New locks installed. Interior cleaned, but left mostly as is. The key they provided felt cold and heavy in my palm as I approached the front door. My front door now. Walking into that house was like stepping into a time capsule with slightly updated appliances. Same layout. Same beige walls with hairline cracks near the ceiling. Same squeak in the 3rd floorboard from the entryway. Even the smell was the same. A mixture of my mom's discount fabric softener and the perpetual mustiness of a house built on a questionable foundation. I set up my laptop on the kitchen table, connected to the Wi-Fi I'd had installed the day before, pulled up the documents showing my ownership of every property relevant to my family's existence, deed to the house, commercial property lease agreement, the foreclosure documents on Uncle Emilio's precious split level, everything arranged in neat, labeled folders. At 11:30, I made coffee using the new machine I'd had delivered. Not for them, for me. I wanted to be sharp when they arrived. No alcohol dulling my reflexes. No whiskey to make me soft like my father. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications from the family group chat. Asterisk Raul. Who TF is S? And why are we all playing along with this BS asterisk asterisk mom? Please everyone just come. We can't risk getting evicted. Asterisk Zariah. At Raul. Shut up and be there. I think I know who it is. Asterisk Uncle Emilio. This is clearly illegal harassment. I've contacted my lawyer. My father, predictably, remained silent. At 11:52, I took my position in the living room. The restored scholarship letter in its frame sat on the coffee table. A silent grenade waiting to detonate. At 12:01, the first car pulled up. My mother and father. She looked older than her 58 years, her hands visibly gnarled from arthritis as she helped my father from the passenger seat. He moved like a man 15 years older than he was, yellow-tinged skin hanging from a once solid frame. The whiskey had taken its toll. At 12:04, Zariah arrived alone. She'd changed the lease, still the same thoughtful eyes, though with more caution in them now. She glanced up at the house with something like recognition on her face. At 12:08, Raul pulled up in a truck with a missing front bumper and music loud enough to rattle windows, still trying to look like he didn't care about anything. At 12:15, Uncle Emilio arrived, no longer in a shiny F-150, but in a mid-range sedan with visible rust around the wheel wells. His once imposing frame had softened, but his eyes still held that same arrogance. Some foundations don't crack easily. I watched them gather on the porch through the security camera feed on my laptop. Mom tried the door and found it locked. Confusion spread across their faces. My new locks, my new rules. At precisely 12:17, I remotely unlocked the front door from my phone. The sound of the electronic lock disengaging seemed to startle them. Technology, always making an entrance more dramatic. I heard them file into the entryway. Murmured conversations and footsteps approaching the living room. Then silence as they saw me sitting there. I didn't stand, didn't smile, didn't speak first. Control of the situation meant making them come to me. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father's bloodshot eyes widened. Zariah nodded slightly, as if confirming a theory. Raul looked like he'd seen a ghost, and Uncle Emilio, his face cycled through confusion, recognition, and then that same dismissive anger I remembered from 11 years ago. He broke the silence first, of course, started ranting about trespassing and legal consequences, how I had no right to be there, how he'd have me arrested. His voice grew louder with each threat, but I noticed his hands trembling slightly. The foundation of his confidence was already cracking. I let him finish, then I pointed to the chair directly across from me and told him to sit down, not asked, told. I had practiced that tone for years, the voice of someone who owns not just the room, but the building, the land, and everyone in it. To my satisfaction, he sat. They all did. That's when I opened my laptop and turned it to face them. On screen was a simple spreadsheet showing all the properties I now owned. 1. 1423 Maple Street, their current house. 2. 56 Industrial Parkway, Emilio's business location. 3. 1875 Hillcrest Drive, Emilio's former home. 4. 5 surrounding commercial properties. Next to each property was a column showing the current occupant, current rent, and new rent, effective the following month. For Emilio's business location, the new rent was exactly 400% of the current rate. For their house, it was triple. For his former home, now in foreclosure, scheduled for demolition, his face went pale. Actually, pale, like someone had drained all the blood from it. I've demoed enough old structures to recognize when something is about to collapse. I spent the next 17 minutes methodically explaining how I had acquired each property, how I had systematically targeted his business by taking his major client, how I had purchased his debt at a discount and called it due at the precise moment when he couldn't pay, how I now controlled every aspect of his financial existence. Throughout this explanation, I kept my voice even, like I was discussing the weather forecast or explaining how to properly install drywall. The clinical detachment seemed to unnerve them more than anger would have. My mother started crying silently. My father stared at the floor. Zaria watched me with something between respect and horror. Raul kept checking his phone like this was all too awkward to process. Then I picked up the framed scholarship letter from the coffee table and handed it to Uncle Emilio, told him to read it aloud. He refused at first, claimed he didn't know what this was about. That's when I pulled out my phone and showed them all the notification for an automatic payment I could initiate with one tap. It would trigger eviction proceedings against all of them simultaneously. One tap. He read it. Every word of that full-ride scholarship I never got to use. His voice grew smaller with each sentence. When he finished, I took the frame back and placed it carefully on the table. Then I laid out their options. For my parents, they could continue living in the house, but under new conditions. Dad would enter rehab for his alcoholism. I'd already researched facilities and could have him admitted that day. Mom would receive the medical care for her arthritis that she'd been putting off because of cost. I'd arranged for appointments with specialists. They would pay a nominal rent that would increase if they maintained any contact with Uncle Emilio. For Zaria, no conditions. She'd been my only connection to family and had never participated in my humiliation. She could stay or go as she pleased. For Raul, complete severance from my life and property. He wasn't worth the effort of revenge or reconciliation. For Uncle Emilio, Total financial destruction. The choice between leaving town with nothing or staying to work as a maintenance man on the properties I now owned, reporting directly to me. Either way, his business was finished. His house was gone. His standing in the community destroyed. I delivered these terms without emotion, like laying out the specifications for a construction project, precise measurement, clear deadlines, non-negotiable quality standards. The silence that followed was broken only by my mother's quiet sobs and the sound of Uncle Emilio's breathing growing more ragged. Then he lunged at me. I had anticipated this. The cornered animal response. I sidestepped easily. 11 years of construction work had built me differently than the soft-bodied man who once tore up my future. He stumbled into the coffee table, sending the framed scholarship letter crashing to the floor. The glass shattered, a satisfying sound that punctuated his fall. As he struggled to his feet, face red with humiliation, I pulled out one final document from my laptop bag. A police report filed that morning detailing threatening messages he'd sent in the group chat after my announcement. Technically, those constituted threats against a property owner, grounds for a restraining order, which I'd already filed for. I handed copies to everyone in the room, explained that if he came within 100 feet of me or contacted me in any way, he would face immediate legal consequences. The restraining order also prevented him from entering any property I owned, which now included nearly every building relevant to his life. He had exactly 24 hours to remove his personal belongings from his former house before demolition preparations began. 72 hours to vacate his business location unless he accepted the new rental terms, which required him to work for me personally. Uncle Emilio's face crumpled, not in sadness, in defeat, the kind of structural failure that can't be repaired, only demolished and rebuilt from scratch. My father finally spoke, started with excuses about how he was just trying to protect me from disappointment, how college wouldn't have worked out anyway, how I should understand now that I was older. I cut him off mid-sentence, told him he had until 5 p.m. to decide about rehab. The car would arrive at 5:30, either way. Then I stood up, told them the meeting was over, that my property manager would be in touch regarding their decisions and next steps, that all future communication would go through proper channels, no more direct contact. As they filed out in stunned silence, I noticed Zariah lingering behind. She asked in a quiet voice if this was really what I wanted, if revenge would actually make me happy. I told her happiness was never the foundation I was building on. This was about justice, about consequences, about finally tearing down what should never have been built in the first place. When everyone was gone, I sat alone in that empty house, the house that witnessed my dreams being destroyed, the house I now own. I didn't feel the rush of victory I'd imagined for 11 years. I felt something steadier, more permanent, like when you step back from a completed project and know it will stand for decades. My phone buzzed with notifications, the family group chat exploding with reactions, Uncle Emilio making threats, then bargaining, then finally begging, my father announcing he would go to rehab, my mother thanking me through tears for the medical appointment. I left them all unread. By evening, my father was checked into the rehabilitation facility. My mother was alone in the house for probably the first time in decades. Uncle Emilio had been spotted at the local motel with 2 suitcases, all that remained of his life. I didn't sleep in the house that night. Too many ghosts. Instead, I checked into a hotel on the edge of town and opened my laptop, started researching demolition companies for Emilio's former home. I wanted to watch it come down personally. Some people might call this obsessive, unhealthy, but they don't understand what it means to build something that lasts. You need to start with a clean site, remove all the compromised structure, dig down to solid ground. Tomorrow, I'll begin the demolition phase. Then we'll see what rises from the cleared land. The family group chat continues to light up my phone. I've muted it for now. There will be time for words later. Right now, actions are speaking clearly enough. 11 years of silence has ended, and the noise I'm making will echo through what's left of their lives forever.